Good morning from Altoona, Iowa. It's about 9:30 in the morning, and it's November 9th, 2019. That day shouldn't mean anything to you, but it does to me because tomorrow is my 72nd birthday. For some reason, 72nd seems to have some importance to it, but for the life of me, I cannot imagine what it is. I'm going to play the introduction to Senator Klobuchar's speech at the Main Street Bakery and Cafe in Ankeny, Iowa yesterday, in addition to the first 12 minutes of her speech. So I'll keep this narration short because this video is going to be plenty long as it is. There are two things I want to address though. First, I got a comment that pointing out that Senator Klobuchar is very pretty may be either not appropriate or sexist depending on how you look at it. Same comment was made regarding my observation that she seemed very warm and without a shell. I think both of those ingredients are very important, and to the charge that men are not described as handsome or warm, my response is that's simply because there aren't enough female commentators, or for that matter, gay commentators. When I was a kid, John F. Kennedy ran against Richard Nixon in 1960 for president. And my next door neighbor, a girl named Peggy, who was my age, told me that even though everyone in our neighborhood was a Republican, she would vote for John Kennedy because he was so handsome. Now, she was only 12 or 13, but I've never forgotten that comment. And if you look at the male candidates, handsomeness applies. Beto O'Rourke was knockout handsome, even from 100 meters away in a forum. And I'm sure that added to his appeal, at least in some degree. If you use it as a contraindicator, I don't know much about Vice President Pence, but he seems to me to be a cold robot. And I think that's one reason people are so disposed against him. So any candidate, male or female, who is either handsome or pretty, and who is warm instead of being cold, that's a characteristic that needs to be observed. Folks used to say that the presidential election between two males boiled down to who you would most like to have a beer with. So, for example, in the year 2000, George Bush won that easily over Al Gore. Interestingly, that was a correct perception. If you look at the documentary Journeys with George by Alexa Pelosi, Nancy's daughter, George wears really well. And as one of the liberal press members in his press pool commented towards the end of the campaign trail, he had charmed the socks off of all of them. And that documentary mentioned that most of the people in Al Gore's press pool couldn't stand the man. That makes a difference. The second issue is I was discussing this Iowa venture with some friends by FaceTime the other night, and I was asked who would be an appropriate candidate for Joe Biden. And I'd never thought about it. My first reaction was Joe Biden won't be the nominee for reasons I'll explain in another video, but I could be wrong. I've long thought that Senator Bennett of Colorado is the ideal vice presidential candidate for any of the other persons running for president. But having now heard Amy Klobuchar, I think she fits that description too. And if the Democrats are concerned about balancing the ticket, male and female, she certainly should be considered. At the time, I said that Senator Harris was the logical choice for Joe Biden. I now amend that to say Harris or Klobuchar.
Thank you all for coming today. My name is Andrea Phillips, and I am running for the Iowa House for the northern part of Amy. Amy is the first woman elected to Congress from the state of Minnesota, and she's been working hard to make a difference in the lives of everyday people. She was just recently ranked as the most effective Democratic senator in the last Congress. Amy is committed to improving the lives of families in the heartland and making sure that kids who are born in rural America can stay in rural America. She is focused on getting things done. When she first came to Congress, her #1 ask was to be on the Senate Agriculture Committee, because she understands this country has to do more to support our beginning farmers, to fund rural energy programs, and to promote conservation. She's fighting for the issues we care about here in Iowa: infrastructure, our schools, healthcare, addiction, mental health. She understands the challenges and opportunities that we face here. And best of all, she knows how to win. She can bring Democrats up and down the ballot with her. She has won every congressional district in Minnesota the last 3 times she's won her statewide race. And last year, she won 42 of the counties that Trump won in 2016. With Amy at the top of the ticket, Minnesota Democrats took back the House, flipped 2 congressional seats, and won every statewide election. Now Amy is running the fight for every American. So please give a warm welcome to the senior senator from the state of Minnesota and candidate for President of the United States, Amy Klobuchar.
Really part of a national trend where you saw what happened in Kentucky, right? There you go, our friends there. What we saw happen in the legislature in Virginia. What you saw in the suburbs of Philadelphia, where one county board went Democratic that had never been Democratic before. Ever. All right? So that's what we're dealing with right now. And it's because I think it's really democracy fighting back. It's regular people and we're our organization, your grassroots work, but it's also people that are willing to go to the polls right now because they have just, I love that baby, by the way. That is the most attentive baby ever at a political event. So I see my undecided voter. Oh yeah, I like that. But in any case, what we saw was just regular people, including when you look at a state like Kentucky, where you've got not just Democrats, but independents, moderate Republicans, who really had it. And the focus, as we think about Ankeny, a lot of the story coming out of this nationally is suburban voters, right? It is a lot of voters in the suburbs that used to vote Republican. I think when I did the Ankeny dinner, I think I told you the story, but this was when I first started running in Hennepin County for the Hennepin County Attorney, local job. When I did that, 2/3 of our county was actually in Congressman Rensted's district, or maybe more like 60%, a Republican representative. And so people did not know if I was ever going to be able to win, particularly in the suburbs. And I remember I started going out to all those suburban areas and making the case. And my favorite memory is Minnetonka. Some of you know the Twin Cities, know this area. And I went into this high school for the Democratic meeting. And I went in and there was this room and there was like 6 or 8 guys sitting in there looking a little forlorn. And it was in the middle of winter. And I went in there and I thought, well, here we are. This must be the Democratic meeting in Minnetonka. So I try to have this smile on my face. And I walk in, I say, how are you guys doing? I'm running for county attorney. And the guy goes, Amy, yeah, we know who you are, but we don't know if you really want our endorsement. This is the Golf Club of Minnetonka. We have our winter meeting, and he said there were so many Democrats I had to put them in another room. And I went around the corner and there were 250 people. That's organized. And that is organizing. And that's what these candidates just did in this election. So that's really, as we go into this presidential, I think sometimes, you get into the big stories and you get into the horse race and you get into what billionaire is running today. It's like a game. Like you're a billionaire, let's see. But in fact, these races start at the local level. They start with what happened this week. They really do. And it's regular people coming and saying, who do we want to have win this election for us? Who do we think has the biggest chance of winning? But also, who do we want to have governing our country? And as I've always said, this is not going to end on election day. It's really going to begin on inauguration day. And for me, that means, first of all, when you decide to do something like this, you really have to make a decision that you believe you can win. And you heard about my track record. I think you all know it, that I've won in those red districts, not just one fluky election, I want every single time, and I have brought people with me. And I didn't just flip the State House the last time, I did it every single time when I led the ticket. And that means you go to areas that aren't just the easy ones, and you get the base turned out. Yes, we had the highest voter turnout in the country last time when I ran, but you also go and you reach out to people, because I think this election is so critical for our democracy, and we cannot be the party that shuts people out. We have to be the party that brings people with us. And for me, that means, first of all, making sure we have an optimistic economic agenda that's going to bring people with us, including that young, undecided voter. So we will start with preschool today, and really the education system, when you think about it, how important that's been in Iowa. When I remember still being in first grade and hearing about taking the Iowa Basics. Remember that test? And that was because your state was known for your education system. And now you've had a rough patch with some Republican governors who haven't done a very good job of funding it. I think there's things we can do at the federal level to step in. Pre-K, yes, is incredibly important, as is making sure we have good funding at the federal level. That's why I put forward an idea, paid for in a really smart way, which I'll explain in a second, but to up teachers' pay and to make sure we have money going into infrastructure for schools. And the way I pay for it, because every single thing I put out there, I've explained how I'm going to pay for it, is by just simply changing the estate tax back to the level it was during Barack Obama. It went up to an exemption for when you have to pay taxes to $11 million a person, when it was at something like $3 million before that. So that would bring in billions and billions and billions of dollars, which would help us pay for school and for teachers and for things like that. Then we go up to the next level, and that's college, and that is making sure that we're connecting what's going on in our education system with what's happening out there with our jobs. And I know there's a lot of proposals out there, but I've been uniquely focused on being from a state like Iowa with low unemployment, looking at how we connect these things. And that's why I think the best way to do this is to start. I'm going to go to a community college today with free 1- and 2-year degrees. Why? Because those are the fastest growing jobs in our country right now. So we are going to have 78,000 openings for electricians in the next 2 years. We're going to have nearly that number of openings for plumbers. We are going to have 1 million openings for home health care workers. We are going to have a huge number of openings for people who work in healthcare and work in nursing homes and are nurses, and you think about that whole thing. So what do we want to do? We don't just say, oh, everyone go get a free degree. We don't care what it is. Sports marketing. No. What we have to do is think, how do we create incentives so people are going to go into those areas, and then to respect the dignity of work, make sure that they're able to have enough money so they can have child care, and that we help with child care so they can work those jobs and they can have a decent retirement. That's what we're talking about with the dignity of work, because we actually want people to go into these areas. The other part of it is immigration reform and having a path to citizenship for people who've been obeying the law and are here. That was a bill we actually passed in the Senate with bipartisan support in 2013, but then it died in Boehner's freezer next to the frozen peas. I don't know, but it was a big deal. That's comprehensive immigration reform. It reduces the debt by $158 billion in 10 years. That's why Grover Norquist restored this bill, because people start paying their taxes and because people come out from the shadows, and then it also raises wages for people. That is what we should do. We do both those things. We train our workers for the jobs we know are coming and not the jobs we know aren't coming. We make sure that they get decent wages and decent lives while they're doing those jobs. We make sure it's easier to go to college for students that want to go to college by doubling Pell Grants to $12,000 a year, which would be a huge help for your state colleges in Iowa, and then have them go up to families making $100,000 a year, which has been my proposal from the beginning. And that is how we do it. We mesh all of this together. I would pay for it by changing this thing called the capital gains rate, which is a real ripoff for regular citizens, and putting that down into the personal rate. That saves over $100 billion that you can plow into education. So that's my answer for my little undecided voter over there as he plans to go to school. I really think that we have to not just have bumper sticker answers for these problems. And I think, so you might think, oh, Amy, your answer was so boring and you took 10 minutes to explain it. I actually think people get it out there. The people that have kids that they don't want to go get a degree that they then can't use, they get it. They get what it means to have all this student debt and then not being able to pay it off because you can't get a job that works with that degree. So that is why I think it was one of our problems actually in the last election, that we weren't being practical about where people were and that they actually get what jobs are available in their community and what they need. And some of them, it's something like 10% of people in 2-year degrees, colleges, you ready for this, have 4-year degrees. That means we're kind of mismatching things, that it should go the other way, that you can start with a 2-year degree and then go to a 4-year degree. It's not for everyone. A lot of kids are going to go right to 4-year degree colleges, including a lot of great ones here. But we have to make that path to success available. That's what my own sister did. She didn't graduate from high school. She had some problems. She ended up moving to Iowa and working in manufacturing. She did that for years, and then she got her GED, got her high school degree that way. And then she went to a 2-year degree college right near here. And from there, she went and got her 4-year degree and got the highest score in accounting that year in the state of Iowa. That is many paths to success, and that's how she's been employed ever since, but it took like 10 years. And so there are many ways for people to go on this journey. And we cannot, as a Democratic Party, just get one side, one kind of job, one kind of student, and I think we've got to remember that. You agree? Yeah. Okay, good.
I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this content, please subscribe. If you know how to give a thumbs up, that's very welcome too. Thank you for watching.